Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Mark Kavita, and I'm the Director of Admission for the Dornsife College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences here at the University of Southern California. I just wanted to once again say welcome to our Dornsife Discover program. We are so thrilled to have you join us today as we explore the social sciences and humanities fields here at USC. Also want to mention that this event is being hosted by the Dornsife Office of Undergraduate Admission and Student Success. A few of our staff members are in the background today and will be answering some of your questions in the chat in the Q&A. So you may see some names and you may see some answers coming your way throughout our time together today. So while you may not see them, just know that they are there. But some logistics for this event, while this is a webinar, we do want to make sure that we have an opportunity to answer some of your questions as we go along. So there will be an opportunity a little bit later on to ask questions through our Q&A box. For now, go ahead and hold your questions. We have some introductions as well as some preliminary information that we want to make sure that we have an opportunity to share before we go ahead and open up those questions. But we will do our best to get through as many of those questions that you all have about the social sciences and humanities here at USC as much as we can throughout our session today. But I will not be solo in hosting our event, and obviously kind of our guest stars and the people that you really want to hear from are some of our current USC Dornsife students. So I'm going to actually have them unmute their videos and join me now so that we can get our session started. There they are. So we'll go ahead and have each of our student panelists introduce themselves, give you a little bit of information about who they are, what they're doing here at USC, where they're from, and then we'll go ahead and get into some of the meat of our presentation today. So Ava, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to talk with you guys today. My name is Ava Grosley. I'm a current sophomore, and I'm from Carlsbad, California, which is in San Diego. I am an English literature major with a minor in advertising. I also have a pre-law emphasis. 2 to 3 things that I'm involved in at USC is undergraduate student government, where I'm spearheading a project for students to have EBT workshops. And then I'm also involved in the Women's Pre-Law Society, as well as Panhellenic and my sorority. And what I want to go to in the future, maybe a legal career, maybe marketing, or maybe publishing, but we'll just see.
Great, thanks, Ava. Danny, how about you?
Hi, everyone. My name's Danny. Again, I'm so glad to be here. I'm a senior here at USC pursuing a double major in art history and political science. I also have a pre-law emphasis. I'm originally from Haddonfield, New Jersey, which is a small town outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, so the East Coast. I'm a tour guide here at USC, so if you ever make it to campus to visit, you might see me. I'm also a member of Trojan Democrats, USC's political union. And then I studied abroad in London, England last spring. And after college, I hope to go to law school and then have a legal career as well.
Jerome.
Hi, everyone. Once again, I'm so glad to be able to be here today and talk with you all. My name is Jarrell Arana. I am a current 3rd year here at USC. I am studying international relations and the global economy. I also have a pre-law emphasis. I'm from a small town called Brentwood, which is in the Bay Area, East Bay, if you guys know where that's from. And then 2 to 3 activities that I'm involved in. I'm a former director of event planning and project management for USC's Cancer Relief Chapter. And I'm a DoorDash campus ambassador. So yeah. And I guess for my career-wise, I do plan on also going to law school afterwards and pursuing a career in corporate law and then later bridging into IB or finance.
Great, and Kennedy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kennedy, and I'm from Flower Mound, Texas, which is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I am a senior in the progressive degree program, so I am pursuing a Bachelor of Arts in psychology while simultaneously pursuing a Master's of Science in applied psychology. Some activities I'm involved in on campus are SC Ballet, the ballet company on campus. I'm a company member. I am also a part of USC's chapter of Make-A-Wish. I am an usher on campus, so I usher the auditoriums around campus, and I'm also a Dornsife transfer ambassador. In the future, I would love to enter a career in HR, and I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful, thank you all. And so while I'll be giving some kind of broad strokes overviews of what Dornsife has to offer in the social science and humanities, These 4 students are really going to be providing those current student perspectives and giving you some specific information, not only in the things that they're interested in, but some of the activities and involvements that they have here on campus. But I'm going to very briefly, just for a couple of minutes, just share some information about the Dornsife College, especially for those of you who are attending today that haven't had a chance to either visit our campus or just have a lot of information or time to research what we're all about here at the University of Southern California. So as you start to explore and do your research, you'll notice that USC is made up of multiple different academic units that can include areas of engineering, business, so on and so forth. We are the College of Liberal Arts here at USC, so we oversee about 90 majors and 90 minors within 3 different categories. So that's going to include the 2 that we're talking about today, the social sciences and the humanities, but that's also going to include majors in the natural sciences as well. So we are the largest and oldest school here at USC, but that also makes us the most academically diverse with all the different major options and minor options that are kind of at your fingertips as a Dornsife student. Beyond just the academic piece, as you've been taking classes in your general education, your majors, and your electives, which we'll also talk about today, there's also a lot of wonderful opportunities to study interdisciplinarily in the Dornsife College. So that means taking classes not only in your major, but in other colleges or even other departments within the liberal arts college and otherwise. That also means that we're going to encourage our students here at the Dornsife College to get involved in areas outside of the classroom. So we have about 55 study abroad programs over 30 different countries. We have 66 research centers, as well as faculty-led research and research grant funding program that students can engage in at the undergraduate level. We have opportunities for you to get out into the Los Angeles community and participate in what we call service learning opportunities, or just learning through community service and being out in the community. And then, of course, just engaging in areas that allow you to be more prepared for your future career. So that could include our USC Career Center, but within Dornsife specifically, we also offer and sponsor areas of pre-professional advisement, which we'll talk about a little bit as well as our Career Pathways Office, which specifically prepares our liberal arts students for careers in the liberal arts and wherever they decide to take their degree after they graduate. So there are so many different places and directions that we can take this conversation. So we're going to try to kind of touch on each of these areas throughout our hour-long session today. And then, of course, like I said, at the end, we'll go ahead and answer some of your questions too. But to start with, I want to turn it back over to our students because we are focusing a bit more on the social science and humanities side of things. So I would love for each of you to talk a little bit about the major that you've pursued while you've been here at USC, some things you like about it. We're also talking to all prospective students today, so students who are interested in applying to USC or starting the application process. So I'd also love to hear maybe a little bit about why you chose the major or what it was about that major that was interesting to you. So we'll go in the same order that we did for our introduction. So Ava, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Yes, I love talking about this. I think that when people hear that I'm an English major, it's kind of a shock at USC. I think we're small yet mighty. But for me, I've always had a passion for English literature, and it started way beyond like junior year English 3 AP. It started probably back in 6th grade when I was introduced to American literature, which I am taking a class in American literature right now. But that passion kind of followed me throughout high school, and I really loved bridging the voices of the past to the present. And that was something that I was so adamant and passionate about. And when I was looking for schools, I really wanted an institution that honored that I wanted to study English literature without fear for the future. I know a lot of times people will talk about how if you're a humanities major, there's not a lot of career options after, or a lot of times they try to put you in this box. But USC, and specifically Dornsife, does something very different than other schools where they will lift you up if you want to be a humanities major. And I feel totally lifted up. I think that being an English literature major here, I have access to so many opportunities, so many individuals, and it's just been an amazing time. Regarding my minor, which is in a different school, oh no, but just kidding. But having a minor in a different school is something that you can do with ease in Dornsife. And so I'm an advertising minor because I have a passion for advertising and marketing. Don't know what I'm going to do with that in terms of my legal career later, but I'm able to honor that while also being an English literature major. So that's just a little bit about my experience so far, but I know I'll probably talk a little more about it later as well.
Great. Danny?
That was great, Ava. Thank you. I really loved hearing about like kind of where your passion came from. So I guess that's kind of how I want to start my answer. So growing up, my parents loved taking me and my younger brother to art museums. It was kind of like some of my earliest memories are in art museums. So coming to college, I knew that was something that I wanted to spend time learning about and focusing on, which is why I added actually my second major, art history, my first week here at USC. On the other hand, my poli-sci major, which is the major I was admitted as, was kind of based more on my understanding of social activism and social justice, which are two things that I care about very deeply. In high school, I was involved with a lot of community organizing groups, and I wanted to make sure that the school I was at allowed me to better understand, how the types of organizing that I was doing in high school can work on a larger level. And I think USC has done a really good job at allowing me to pursue those interests. One thing I really love about my two majors is that in both of my majors, I can actually take classes outside of my own home departments and have them count for major credit, which is really nice. So for example, I took last fall an art history class, or a class that counted for art history credit that was in the East Asian Languages and Culture department on Japanese fashion and its impact on Japanese culture, which I thought was such a cool kind of way to bridge the divide between different departments in my own. And I think that opportunity has really given me like a larger breadth of knowledge that I'll take with me beyond USC.
Great. Jarrell.
Okay, I absolutely love that, Danny. I thought it was really cool you kind of noting the different classes you really like to take. And honestly, in picking USC, I was really kind of excited. I was looking for a school that kind of embraced an interdisciplinary manner of like learning. And I feel though I love my major. I'm an IRGE or International Relations Global Economy. So I won't lie, my classes do entail a lot of reading, a lot of writing, but it's kind of helping me curate a world perspective on politics, law, and all of that such. But it's also allowed me a lot of freedom in the sense of which in Dornsife, I'm able to take classes. For example, I'm currently taking a introduction to poetry class where we write both poetry and prose, and it's allowed me to kind of develop my passions while still also pursuing what I want career-wise. And I think USC, specifically Dornsife, gives you a lot of freedom to do so. I've even taken for a GE, I've took it last fall. I took an anatomy class where we actually had students from both China and Africa, and we got to log on with us on a Google Meets with them every single week, and you kind of you develop a very diverse perspective, which I don't think I could have gotten anywhere else. So yeah.
And Kenny, how about you from the transfer perspective?
Yes, so I transferred to USC last year as a junior. I was doing college online studying psychology, but what drove me to transfer to USC was the opportunity to get involved in research. USC and Dornsife, they do an excellent job at encouraging undergraduate students to participate in research in the curriculum and then outside of the curriculum. So for example, two classes that I've taken, non-experimental research and experimental research, where you get to dive into how to conduct a research study and how to report a research study. And the faculty has been really helpful in facilitating that, but then also getting to participate in studies outside of the classroom has been very helpful. So I just love how they emphasize research as a psychology major here at USC, and it was a big factor for me deciding to transfer into the psychology program here.
Thank you all so much. And I do want to let our students know who are attending today's session that as you are pursuing and looking at the Common Application, as you're looking at what places that you want to apply to and what colleges you're interested in, at USC, you do need to select a first choice, and you can select a second choice major as part of the application process. And what I do want to emphasize is that while our students here, had an opportunity to find the major that they really enjoyed, found it, stuck with it, and have kind of continued throughout that process by adding and supplementing that with different programs, there is opportunities, based on the types of majors that you're looking at for some flexibility once you get here as well. So don't feel like that you are tied specifically to that major. We obviously want you to apply to something that you are very interested in. At USC Dornsife, we do not have any impacted majors. Our application rates do not change based on the major that you select within the liberal arts college. So it's really about identifying what you're passionate about, what interests you have, and what you may want to do while you're here at USC. And I think that's going to allow you to tell a great story as part of your application process. And you'll hear a little bit more from our students as well about how we're able to provide support based on some of those other major factors and some of the departments that they've been able to engage in. Obviously, the major is going to be the bulk of what students are doing while they're here at USC, but at least to start, a lot of students will be taking their general education courses, or what we call the USC core. What I do want to emphasize about the USC core and the general education here at USC is that as a Dornsife student, you're open to taking classes all across the campus. So not only if you are a social science or humanities major, you're not only restricted to taking social sciences or humanities classes, even within your general education. We do allow the ability and kind of the freedom to explore around the campus, take classes, and you may find as we talk together today and from some of our students that a lot of the times they have found their major, their second major, their minor, or other programs that they've been able to add to their degree by taking some of these general education classes and finding some interests that maybe they weren't aware of quite yet. And so that's sort of the bulk of what you're going to be doing within those first couple years as you start to transition into getting acclimated to your major and taking some of those lower division and upper division classes too. So I think to change things up, I'm going to go in reverse order this time. And Kennedy, I'll save you for the end so that you can talk a little bit more about some of the classes that you took instead of the general education since you transferred in. But Jarrell, we're going to start with you. And if you want to just maybe talk about the general education experience for you and what you found valuable, or maybe just a class that you really enjoyed at the general education level.
So, I won't lie, I came in with a lot of AP credits, so I didn't have as much GEs as I would have liked to take. However, the ones that I did take, like I said, I'm an IR major, but had the opportunity to take both a bio and astronomy class, and honestly, some of them have been one of my favorite ones. I even took this one called LA, the City, the Novel, the Movie, where we delve deep into pop culture in LA, both in movies, novels, songs, music, pretty much anything you could think of. And it kind of developed a very diverse perspective of LA that I never thought I would have, especially coming from NorCal. And I think all of these GEs, all of our professors are so readily available to us. And I think that was what I really love about USU, which is where I'm able to develop a very personal connection with each and every one of my professors. I feel like they're always willing to help me, and even till this day, I still stay in contact with a lot of them. So I've only had positive things to say about my GEs.
Great. Danny, anything to share about your general education experience?
Yeah, so like Jarrell, I think one thing that is common among a lot of first year students entering USC as first year admitted students is that they bring AP credit with them that allows them to kind of work their way through the general education curriculum a bit quicker. Um, and I came in with 8 courses waived via my AP credit, which was quite a few. And part of me was a little upset about that because I think GEs do offer a really wonderful opportunity for you to step away from what you're learning and look at things from a different perspective. One of my favorite general education courses that I took was in the life sciences category, which I think is one of 7 or 8 categories that we require students to take GEs from. And it was a class at the School of Gerontology, which is gerontology is the study of aging and how aging populations affect society. The class was like a 200-person lecture, which coming from a really small high school, I wasn't used to and was actually a little bit nervous about. But I had this wonderful professor, Professor John Walsh, who kind of conducted the class like a game show. He would like throw a football at us to answer questions. In the middle of our 3-hour lecture, he would have us like literally get up and do a lap around the outside of the gerontology school. And then if we ever finished early, we would watch videos of like the Maverick surf competition because he said we were learning about how the brain worked, and apparently surfing is one of the activities that activates the most parts of the brain, and that was his justification for showing us surf videos at the end of the class. But it was a really wonderful experience to kind of step away from what I was used to and try something a little bit different.
I guess it's a good sign that Jarrell and Danny talked about the fact that they wish they could take more general education classes. Ava, I know that you went through a slightly different pathway, just for those who are attending to know that we also have a couple of alternate programs to general education. So Ava engaged in one of those programs, so I'll let her talk about that.
Yeah, so I decided to do an alternative general education program called Thematic Option, or TO. And do not worry about this program just yet. You do have to apply for it, but you apply after you are admitted. Well, luckily, fingers crossed, to USC. I absolutely love this program because it gives you the option to take smaller classes and have more of a discussion-based learning approach to subjects or ideas or concepts. So it's in the name, thematic option, a lot of themes going on. And each class has kind of a big theme that you're working towards or just kind of putting in thought towards. Right now I'm taking a globalization and sovereignty class where we're taking Harvard case studies about humanitarian catastrophes, and we're analyzing through interpretive approaches how we can address those humanitarian crises and catastrophes in the world, or what we could have done in the past in terms of domestic policy, foreign policy, what we could do to make change, or what we could have done differently. So you take types of classes like that, but also, when you do general education requirements at USC, you have two classes that you're required to take. There's RIT 150 and then RIT 340. But the program TO allows you to take both of those requirements within your freshman year, instead of it being spread out from your freshman year to another year you're at USC. But overall, I've had a really great time, and I've been introduced to a plethora of subjects. But I will say that I'm still taking some other general education requirements outside of TO. And the one specifically I would love to talk to you guys about is the history of stand-up comedy. I know it sounds a little wild, but when I tell you that, like, you could, if you are thinking about being a chem major or an econ major, and you're nervous about the course load and the content, and maybe it's all going to be heavy, trust me, you're going to be taking probably one history class, one English class, or something that can kind of give you some variety in your course load. And so the history of stand-up comedy for me right now is a history class, but I'm working with a professor who was, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the show Curb Your Enthusiasm, but he was an actor in Curb Your Enthusiasm, and he has dedicated now his career to like just kind of tracking the history of stand-up comedy. But it's been an incredible experience thus far, and I highly recommend TO if you are admitted to USC and to Dornsife.
Wonderful. Thank you all so far. One other area, the academics. So we talked about the major and the USC core, but there's also an opportunity, not necessarily in the classroom, but as part of your preparation to graduate and kind of move forward with your career, is what we call our pre-professional emphases. And so we offer 3 different tracks. We have pre-health, which is very popular for students who want to go into medicine or any of our other health fields. We have pre-law, which a couple of our students here have mentioned. It's great for students who are obviously looking to go to law school, but also just nice to have if you're interested in maybe having a law emphasis to your degree and kind of look at your academics from that scope. And then we have pre-grad, and that's for any students who are interested in graduate studies that don't necessarily fall under those law or those health buckets. And rather than me talking a little bit about it, I know Kennedy's had an opportunity to engage with our pre-professional emphasis, not only advising, but just kind of getting prepared for what graduate school looks like, which you're kind of already in the midst of. So you want to talk a little bit about how you kind of found that, maybe partnered it with your degree, and what it's brought you now?
Yes, absolutely. So I like to attribute most of the credit to my undergraduate advisor, because they pointed me out to the progressive degree program in applied psychology. They thought it would be a great fit for me because, I'm a psychology major, but I didn't want to go into anything clinical. I wanted to apply the practices of psychology to the workplace and to a business setting. So my undergraduate advisor listened to that and, pointed me in the direction of this program. I applied over the summer, and this is my first semester doing both undergraduate and graduate work. I can attest it is possible. But it's been absolutely great. I have an undergraduate and a graduate school advisor. So they were really great in crafting a schedule that wasn't too overwhelming for me. I feel that I can give 100% to my undergraduate work and also to my graduate work. And I can't say enough great things about the program and how they built out my course plan. Some of the classes that I'm taking in undergrad translate to the classes I'm taking right now at the graduate school level. So I give all of my credit to my undergraduate advisors, and I will always recommend, the applied psychology program, because in my 4 weeks in the program, it's been absolutely fantastic.
Great. And Kennedy had mentioned the progressive degree. And so for those that don't know, the progressive degree allows you to kind of transition from your undergraduate experience and start taking classes at the graduate level as you are finishing up your undergraduate degree. So it's not available for every single major, but there are, I think, over 60 different progressive degree programs that we offer within Dornsife. But Kennedy also mentioned about the preparation and sort of the support that she received, that if you decide to pursue graduate studies or law school or any other programs outside of USC or not as in conjunction with your undergraduate degree, you're still going to get a lot of great support within that. I do want to back up, and I forgot to mention as we were talking about sort of the introduction to Dornsife, some other facts and figures that I think are also really important. You've sort of heard about the lecture style, the discussion style. How do students feel like that they're getting the support, and not only that, but feeling like they're getting a small liberal arts campus feel within a much larger university like USC? Our average class size is 17 students here at Dornsife. So while you do have some larger lecture style classes, that's really going to also be balanced with some of those more smaller discussion, more intimate classroom settings. Ava talked about the thematic option program, and that typically tends to have class sizes that are also a little bit more intimate because it's a little bit more of the like Socratic discussion style learning that you might see. And then our student to faculty ratio as well, I think is really important. Our student to faculty ratio here at Dornsife is about 8-to-1. So for every 8 Dornsife students that we have here on campus, we have a Dornsife faculty to match that. And so as we start to talk about some of those other experiences that our students here have done outside the classroom, I think you'll also hear about the areas of support and the ways that they have access that I think really sets USC Dornsife apart from maybe other universities that you might be looking at there. So before we transition to the outside of the classroom experiences, Ava, you had mentioned that you added a minor outside of Dornsife. And so one of the things that we also want to make sure our students know about is the ability for students to engage in programs outside of their major, but also just along the campus. So did you find that that experience was difficult, or kind of how did you approach that when you were looking at maybe partnering your degree with something else?
Yeah, so it was quite simple, and I know that we'll touch on advising later, but I just kind of went in to an advising appointment and was like, okay, these are the courses I want to take to be an advertising minor, and that was pretty much it. And I know that later on I'll have to do some work in terms of like making sure that I'm keeping up with that minor, but that's my responsibility fully myself. But in terms of ease, it's very easy. I know that constantly at Dornsife, we have people double majoring and then, or having a major and then having 3 minors or 2 minors. I mean, I don't know if we recommend having 3 majors, but that's a little excessive. But I know that many people within Dornsife are taking up minors, doing double majors, and they're doing it with ease. I know, especially at Dornsife specifically, when you can just pick up another major. It's not something that you have to apply for in the school. You may have to apply elsewhere in other schools to be double major in another school, but with Dornsife, it's quite easy.
Thank you. So we spent, again, a lot of time talking about the academic side, but there's so much more to the Dornsife experience than just being in the classroom. We really like to make sure that our Dornsife students have an opportunity to engage not only with the Los Angeles community, with the community here in our country, as well as internationally. That can be through a variety of experiences. So our 4 main pillars that we really focus on here are research, study abroad, internships, and service learning, like I had mentioned at the beginning. So all of our students here have had some engagement in these areas. So we'll kind of touch on each one and have them share some of the specific experiences within the social sciences and humanities that they've been able to engage in. One of our hallmarks of being a university like USC is our support for research, but not only that, the undergraduate research. And I think especially as we're talking to our students about social science humanities here, it's difficult sometimes to picture what research looks like outside of wearing a white lab coat and working with beakers in a wet lab. And while that research does exist, there is a lot of opportunity for our students in some of those other academic domains to engage in research. So I'm actually just going to stop there and let our students kind of take the wheel on sharing some of their experiences. So Danny, I'll go ahead and start with you with your research, and then Jarrell will have you go after Danny.
Sure. So I have the opportunity, or I guess I should say the privilege of being a research assistant at USC's archaeology lab. And this was the position that I actually found out about through my advisor. I began this position at the beginning of my junior year, and it's been a really lovely experience. I'm someone that loves kind of like getting hands-on with old objects. And I know, Mark, you just said usually when you think of research in the humanities and social sciences, you might not think of white lab coats, but I do often have to wear a lab coat. So USC maintains one of the largest archaeological or it maintains one of the largest archives of classical objects from classical antiquity in Southern California. And in the lab, I'll photograph them. We'll conduct chemical testing on them sometimes. Sometimes we have like a 360-degree camera that students will use to upload like digital versions of the archive to the public domain, which is really cool. And I think what's really unique about this opportunity is that we have all these objects kind of sitting here, and what's being done with them is student organized. So we have a professor that runs the lab and works with students, but if a student is really interested in understanding more about, let's say, like Roman coins from a certain emperor in a certain part of the Roman Empire, and wants to, digitize our collection of those objects, that's like something a student could talk to the professor and do. And I love that it's both really applicable to what I study, but also kind of student driven.
Right. And sorry to insult that your research did have a white lab code. I wanted to make sure that that was clear. Jarrell, what about for your research?
So for my research, I've had an abundance of opportunities. My favorite one would have to be when it was after I worked with my sociology professor after my GSEM. I got the opportunity to work as a research assistant where I scribed, took notes, and conducted interviews to help Professor Elaine Bell Kaplan in her new book that's coming out very soon. And it was basically this idea of how we navigate this new world, considering all of these things and our emotions as kind of Gen Z. So it's a very deep dive into like the mental, and I thought it was a really cool opportunity. Another research opportunity I've had, I guess you could call it more of an internship, was while it was not directly correlated with USC, I actually got the internship opportunity through it. So my TA was able to set me up with with an AI company. It's called Storyteller AI. So I work as a director of marketing where I meet with angel investors and I pitch them our product, which is this AI engine that helps movie creators or anyone who wants to create films who don't have the necessary funds to do so, and they can create necessarily deep fakes. It's a really cool concept, and I'm really blessed to have this opportunity. So yeah.
Excellent. So again, those are just a couple of examples. I mentioned earlier that we have 66 research physical centers on campus where students are doing research. We also have research programs that allow students to receive funding at the undergraduate level, whether that be through partnering with research with faculty who are already doing their own research or finding your own research projects that you're passionate about too. We also, of course, have a lot of students engaging in, research is one side, but some other ways that you can get involved, not only with the campus, but the community is doing, what we call service learning, or just the opportunity to learn and participate in the community through community service organizations or activities. We have a few students here who have done a pretty decent amount of service learning opportunities. So I don't want to I think we're going to have to skip one or two in terms of our time, but Ava, why don't we start with you, and then Kennedy, maybe we can have you talk a little bit about some of your service learning opportunities too.
Yeah. So I can talk about my experience, kind of with my experience kind of studying abroad. With studying abroad, I mean, I was a freshman last year, so I still have some time before studying abroad in the future. But I had the opportunity, and this kind of is a reminder for if anyone wants to apply early action to do so. But through McCarthy Honors College, I had the opportunity to attend a kind of service learning abroad sort of trip my spring break of freshman year. I got to go to Greece based on what was going on with the climate crisis and everything happening there. A couple summers ago, there was a devastating fire that hit the island of Greece and also a lot of smaller islands. So what we wanted to do was go to Greece as kind of a collaborative, a small group of us got accepted into this program. And we had actually gone to Greece to see how to address big problems in terms of small government. So it was actually an amazing experience, and it kind of was life-changing. But in the future, I know, again, I kind of keep talking about this, but as an English major, I'm really excited for in the future to possibly study abroad in London, maybe for a year or a semester. And so I'm really excited to hear maybe about Danny's experience in one moment about that, because that's what excites me. So yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the Make-A-Wish organization that you're part of?
Absolutely. So I'm a part of USC's chapter of Make-A-Wish. For those who may be unfamiliar, Make-A-Wish is an incredible foundation that creates life-changing wishes for children with critical illnesses. And so our job as students on campus is to raise as much money as possible so that we are able to make wishes for those in the community. Throughout the year, we do, this is always a big hit, it's a Krispy Kreme fundraiser, and we set up right outside the gates. So you can imagine we bring in a lot of money from that. But we also bring students onto campus. So the first football game, we bring them onto the football field at the Coliseum, and we make them fun posters for the football players as they walk through the tunnel to enter the Coliseum. And what was really exciting was last year is we were able to grant a wish, and we were able to send someone to Hawaii. So it's been an amazing experience, and it's taught me a lot about myself, about the LA community, because I'm not from LA, I'm from Texas. And it also makes me realize that I want to continue this work after I graduate, and I would like to be involved in Make-A-Wish post USC.
Wonderful. Thank you all for sharing those experiences. Now, Ava had mentioned that Danny also had an opportunity to study abroad, so it's a great transition to our study abroad opportunities. I will mention that USC Dornsife approaches study abroad a few different ways. We have the traditional study abroad where you're taking a semester off, you're traveling for a semester, you're taking classes while you're there, and then kind of experiencing the culture and some of those experiences. We also have alternate programs. One is called Problems Without Passport, which combines a research and a study abroad opportunity together. We also have a Maymester program, which allows students to take kind of a study abroad at a shorter length, average about 3 to 4 weeks. And it's actually considered a spring class, which allows our students to participate in a study abroad covered under the normal cost of tuition, other than some other expenses that are related to that. So I think with that research, service learning, and then what we'll round out with is kind of the internship piece, is that at Dornsife, there's a lot of ways to do the same thing. So it's just about finding the one that works best for you. So Danny, do you want to talk a little bit about what your study abroad experience was?
Sure. So last spring, which was the spring of my junior year, I had the opportunity to spend a semester at University College London in the UK. What I think was really unique about this program is that I was directly enrolled at UCL. So I was taking classes primarily with British students. I lived in a dorm building that was me and a couple other USC students, and then mostly like British college students, which was really cool. And then another aspect of the program that I greatly appreciated was the fact that all 4 of the courses I took counted for major credit. And that's something that's unique to Dornsife study abroad programs. A lot of the other study abroad programs at USC's other schools don't allow you to have major credit granted for your study abroad classes. But for me, it was essentially like taking any other semester of classes. And then I think finally, the most valuable aspect of study abroad for anyone that's able to participate in it is kind of that like personal component, being kind of in a different country, away from home, usually with a bunch of people you've never met before, is a really, I think, transformative one. I also got to travel quite a bit, which I was very grateful for because I was there for about 6 months. I visited, I think, 13 different countries while I was abroad. And I think that opportunity is not something that you traditionally have here on campus, despite the fact that there's tons to do in Los Angeles. But I'd certainly recommend study abroad if it's a possibility for you.
Great. And then just we're going to talk about one last area, which is the internship piece. But I do want to let our audience know that we'll be opening the Q&A box to start answering questions. So if you do have questions, you can go ahead and submit your questions there. Do not put them in the chat, otherwise we won't see them. And I do want you to keep in mind, we will do our best to answer as many questions as we can aloud with the full group, but our staff in the Office of Admission and Student Success will be in the background answering some questions in the Q&A box itself. So if you don't hear your question aloud, check that Q&A box because you may have gotten that question answered over the chat feature. So with that, the last, again, area that I wanted to discuss is the internship piece. And we've talked about all these great experiences, but a lot of students want to know that if I'm going into a degree like social science humanities, is that going to lead to a career, or are there going to be opportunities for me to at least test out some careers? And I think that's true for all USC Dornsife students, is the ability to try to find what they're looking for in a career, test some things out. Some of it's going to work, some of it's not, some of it's going to be really interesting, some of it's not going to be a great fit. And that's sort of the whole college experiences and kind of testing out some of those areas. So I know that Jarrell and Ava have both participated in some type of internship while they've been here. Jarrell, I know you mentioned a little bit about the internship, but I didn't know if there was any more information or depth that you wanted to share about that experience, where you found it, anything like that.
Actually, I'm also doing currently another internship with this fall,
Perfect.
so if that works as well. Yeah,
Let's do it.
so as I noted earlier, I'm a DoorDash campus ambassador. So this originally started with my internship with Samsung, where I got the opportunity to kind of create product or promote products, I should say, create content for the brand. And as DoorDash reached out to me, I've gotten to kind of go more into strategies and operations. And so now I've had the opportunity to kind of work closely with both the CEO and actual marketing strategists on how to like have students sign up for Dash Pass or promote new products on the app that we're like kind of segueing into. And it's a lot of things that like I never thought I would be doing as a pre-law student. I never thought that I'd have a career in marketing, have a career in sales strategies or even economics. So kind of working more as an analyst and kind of doing those things, it's something that I'm very thankful for that I don't think I would have gotten at USC simply because I feel like Ava kind of mentioned this earlier on. USC does a really good job of uplifting you and really supporting your decisions, even if it's not directly related to what you want to do in the future. And it kind of does a good job of curating a more diverse perspective of everything.
Great. And Ava, I know you have an internship here in our office, but anything that you want to share about that experience, or maybe just how you found it too?
Yeah, I mean, I also completely agree with everything Jarrell just said. But so my internship experience is a little bit hilarious. And I always love to say that the Trojan alumni connection and network is real because of this internship. But essentially, last year, before I had this wonderful internship here at the Dornsife undergraduate admissions office, I was doing an interview for an award within my local community in San Diego. And by the end of the interview, I had said something about talking about how I ended up at USC through my scholarship and everything like that. And my interviewer just immediately stops me and goes, "Wait, you go to USC?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And she's like, "Do you want an internship?" And it was one of those moments where they're like, "Okay." And so I'm a freshman, and I will say this to you guys as well as prospective students. You do not need to have an internship your freshman year. It is definitely amazing if you do, but you do not need to have one. And majority of the time, it might be unpaid, just like mine. But I got offered an internship at the San Diego Public Defender's Office, working within their felony arraignment unit. So I spent the summer working in the county jailhouse, doing assessments on clients of the Public Defender's Office, and also going in the courthouse and also doing the same assessments as well before our clients had their arraignment hearing. Although it was an amazing experience and a great entrance into criminal law, again, this is what internships are for. I don't know if it is for me. It was a pretty heavy summer, and I'm so glad to have had that experience. But I don't know. I don't know if the field of law I would want to go into. But also, I will mention and shout out the lovely Career Center at USC and also Dornsife and their internships, their internship program as well. If you do get an unpaid internship your freshman year or throughout your time at USC, there are plenty of scholarships to give you a stipend, to maybe give you some extra funds for the summer to fund that internship. I actually received a stipend for the summer for my internship, and it was a great little way of support, and it felt amazing. But I know in future summers now that I might take up a Maymester or pursue maybe a different industry.
A lot of times for those listening that we joke that our students are over-decided. There's a lot of things going on here at Dornsife and at USC, so there's just so many things that you can explore. But I think that brings us to the end of the questions that we have prepared. So I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to get to some of the questions that you all have submitted in the Q&A. Kennedy, I'm going to start with you because we have a question. And I think this would be good also for any of our other panelists if you have some insight on this as well. The question is just about how you felt supported in figuring out the area of psychology that you want to pursue, or just like how you've been able to approach that and what areas of support you've been able to receive at USC.
Yes, that's a great question. There are many different directions you can go in as a psychology major. What I find in the program is that USC is going to set you up with the basics so that you will be able to pursue whatever specialty you want to pursue. So those basics include knowing how to conduct research and being able to like work in teams on research. And that was a concern for me going in because I honestly didn't know what type of field I wanted to go in. Luckily, there was a master's program that aligned with my interests. But USC will set you up as a psychology major with the basics that you need to know as a researcher, as a psychology student. Also, you get to choose your upper division psych level classes. So if you're more interested in, neuroscience, if you're more interested in the social psychology area of things, you can choose those classes, see how you feel about them, and kind of go through that process throughout your undergraduate career. So it's all trial and error. If you don't know what you want to do when you come to USC, that is completely fine, because to be honest, I just figured it out. But what you will learn by the end is that you will have the basics that you need to have to pursue anything going forward.
That's such a great perspective too, because we tell our students very often that as they're applying, they do not need to know exactly what they want to do right off the bat. As soon as they are applying for whether you are a first year or a transfer student, just having the ability to kind of understand what you might want to do or just what your passions are, what your interests are, I think is really important too. Building off of that, Ava, we're kind of talking about areas of support, and I know that you participated in our first year advising experience. So I'd love to hear the type of support you received there as sort of a first year student coming into USC.
Yeah, so my experience with first year advising was a really great experience. I know I had a lot of access to my first year advisor, and also I think she just put up with a lot every time I would book an appointment and come in and say this is what I was going to do and the courses I was going to take. I think a lot of times that there is kind of a switch from high school to college where a lot of times they will be advising you and giving you advice. They'll tell you what you need to do in terms of completion for your major, your degree, but a lot of times you kind of have to come in with a plan and they either say yes or no. And so I had a lovely time with my first year advisor, and sadly, I have moved on to my advisor in the English department, but goodbyes are hard, but they just want you to flourish at USC, and that's what they kind of do. They're like a little step in the right direction of your future.
Great. Drill, very specific question and very easy question for you, but I'm gonna supplement a little bit. First, a student here is wondering about the cancer relief organization that you're a part of, but I'm also wondering, did you feel like joining that was like in conjunction with your major, or did you feel like it was just something different that you were passionate about? And neither answer is correct. I'm just curious.
So I'm actually really glad you asked me that question. So I guess I'll kind of answer this in two parts. So the name of the organization is USC Cancer Relief Chapter. And so we're a service-led organization aimed at bringing basically service opportunities for incoming, mostly pre-med and pre-health students, for students to kind of come in, help volunteer, whether we be making gift baskets, cards for cancer patients in the LA area. And in terms of whether or not it was in conjunction with my major, honestly, it really wasn't. But when I was in high school, I was part of, it was Ski Club, and we did a service opportunity with actually a cancer organization in my local area. And we got to do something very similar to that. So to be able to do that on the college level was something that I really wanted to continue and I was very passionate about. And honestly, it's been one of my favorite clubs that I've ever joined. So very thankful.
Good. Well, you definitely have some interest out in the crowd about maybe you just recruited a few future members, which is great. Danny, I'm going to go to you next. And I'm just curious just about you've had a lot of experiences and you studied abroad and you've also engaged in a few different academic programs. How have you felt the experience was in balancing all of those opportunities? Have you ever felt like too overwhelmed, or did you feel like you kind of had everything under control throughout your 4 years here?
I mean, I think it's hard to not feel overwhelmed at some point as a college student. But I think that's kind of part of the process. I know for me, I kind of came to USC with these like certain like intellectual questions that I was hoping to answer through my time here, particularly kind of just understanding how social movements impact creative production and vice versa. And I think like in every aspect of my time here at USC, whether it be my time in the classroom, my time studying abroad, my research opportunities, my student organization involvement, and even just like the interaction I have with the city of Los Angeles, I've kind of been able to develop my understanding of that question. And that's kind of where I want to guide my work after USC. So even when I felt overwhelmed, I think I had like kind of these guiding motivations. And I think a lot of students here at USC have those, but certainly a lot also don't. And I think what's really wonderful is that there's like this kind of network of faculty members, advising staff, and then like we have all of these different support organizations, like our cultural affinity group spaces and our centers for student particular identities, for example, like the First Gen Plus Center or the Veteran Student Office, like all these spaces where students can get support they need if they, are having trouble with certain aspects of their time here at USC. And I think all of those mechanisms work together to make sure that USC students kind of have everything they need, which I really value.
Great, thank you. I'm going to quickly answer just one or two questions on my own because we're getting some application questions in the Q&A as well. The first question was talking a little bit about if there's an opportunity to apply as an undecided major. And I know I talked a little bit earlier about students needing to select a first choice and possibly a second choice major if that's something they're interested in. There's no undecided major to apply into. We do, however, have kind of these 3 different majors that allow for, and I should say they're really great for students who are a little undecided about what specific area within each of those domains, being the natural science, the social science, or humanities majors, but they're not really sure what specific major to go into, but they know they're very passionate about these. So we do have what we call kind of these undeclared natural science, undeclared social science, and undeclared humanity options on the Common App that you can select as well. Again, no difference between applying between that and any other major. It's again very specifically geared toward, like in this case, if we're talking about social sciences or humanities, it's really great for students who are interested in a lot of different fields within those areas, but aren't quite sure how to narrow it down quite yet. And that's where Ava's information about the first year advising really comes in handy because it allows for some time for you to explore what some of those programs might be. So I wanted to make sure I answered that. We have also gotten questions, and I know we talked about it a little bit throughout our time together today about double majoring or having a minor inside and outside of Dornsife. Again, that is all very possible. I always say that some majors and minors fit better together than others based on their rigor, their schedule. So it's something that you can certainly talk about on the Common Application if that's something that you want to pursue while you're at Dornsife or at USC in general, but not something you have to figure out right then and there. And if it's not possible to have the specific path you're looking for, there's certainly other opportunities to supplement that information in other ways, whether that be through just taking classes in the different colleges or participating in clubs and organizations in those different areas too. All right, looking at the time here, we have time for maybe a couple more questions. So I'm just going to search through and see where we might go. Ava, I'm going to go back to you. There's a question about how the thematic option program differs from the general education. I know you mentioned just how the classes may be structured or approached, but if there are any other pieces that you found kind of separated that pathway for general education versus the USC core, that would be great to share too.
So the biggest thing is you have to love reading and writing, because in every single thematic option class you will take, you're probably going to maybe have like 10 books on a syllabus. And you may not be reading the whole entire book, but you will read a significant portion of that book on a week-to-week basis. So what like the biggest difference is, what I would say is like definitely class size, also the professors that are in thematic option as well. A lot of times you might have teaching instructors. That's what I had for my writ equivalent classes, who were like, I guess, still graduate student or PhD students trying to get their PhD to become a doctor or a professor. So that was an amazing experience, also witnessing people starting off their careers and hearing their experiences if you ever wanted to possibly become a professor one day. But on the other side of it, you then have these very experienced individuals who are kind of not necessarily at the end of their career in any means, but who have been very successful in their field. Example being my, I guess, my foreign policy, kind of domestic policy class with Professor Stephen Lammy, who's just a very well-accomplished guy in his field. But that's kind of like the major differences. And I think like it can definitely be shown because of class size. Like you just get a very different experience overall. But also, I will again say that if you do not want to be always an active participant every single day, it may not be an option. It may not be the option for you, because you kind of have to be there, be present, be in the moment, and do the reading.
Yeah, and I think that's a good clarity for that program as well as any other, whether it be alternate general education programs or majors or minor choices that you have. I think it's good to know that not every program is for everybody. That's why we offer all these different options for you to engage in, because it's really about figuring out what works best for you. If you're more attuned to learning in the lecture style, if you're more attuned to learning in a discussion style, really that's where your advisors are going to come in handy to kind of share the information with you and guide you in the right direction. And so thematic option, we also have a program called Freshman Science Honors in the natural sciences. And our USC core are just 3 ways of approaching the same thing, which is the general education. So I think you'll find that pretty frequently here at USC that, again, there's a lot of ways doing the same thing. We are getting close to the end of time, so we're going to wrap up with one last question. I'm going to have everybody on the panel answer this question too. So this is kind of a good traditional wrap-up question for our prospective students, but if you each had a piece of advice or guidance as some of our students here are approaching their application process for college, what advice would you have for our audience today about applying to USC, applying to Dornsife, or just the college journey itself? So let's see, Kenny, I think I'm going to start with you.
I always say that it's very important to convey your enthusiasm for potentially being a USC student. Not only will it get you personally excited about possibly joining the USC family, but also conveying that in your application, is a good thing to do. What I personally did is I did some research on clubs that USC has, the Church and Family Network, and pointed out specific opportunities that USC offered, put that in my application. And, if you want to be at USC, if you want to be a Trojan, if you want to be a part of the family, just try to convey that in your application. And that's always a good place to start.
Great. Danny, we'll go to you next.
I think I kind of talked about this before, but maybe as you're kind of like sorting through your high school experience and preparation of your application to like college or university, think about like those big questions that you wonder about the world, like whether it's something politically related or economically oriented, or maybe it's about bridging the past and the present, like Ava said, like, and then I would say maybe kind of like let that guide your application. I think USC really values people that are passionate and excited to learn. And I think being honest with yourself about like what you're excited about is probably the most important thing you can do.
Great. And Jarrell, we'll go to you next, and then Ava will wrap up with you.
I think kind of piggybacking off of what Danny said, I think, and I did this in my own application too when I was applying, I think it's so simple, but just kind of showcasing your personality. I think when you're writing these applications, it's so easy to want to talk about your different accolades and what you want to do. But I think USC really values you being passionate about a certain subject or a certain area, and kind of conveying that in your application will speak volumes about who you are as a person beyond just the classroom, but also what you want to pursue and whatnot. So for me, I talked about my love of poetry and how I kind of use it to write and how I've used it to navigate life. So it's a little nuance about you will speak volumes, especially when they're going through hundreds of applications a day. It'll make you stand out.
And Ava.
Yeah, I think I have 2 pieces of advice, one more general and one more USC, I guess, early action specific or application specific. But number 1 is that this application period and this time of your life is not your entire life, and it's not a reflection of who you are and who you're going to be. It's hard, it's complicated, there's a lot of emotions, and also you might write about something in your college applications and then maybe get to college and a year later it will change, and that will feel maybe devastating. It will be a confusing rush of emotions, but just know this is a time for you to reflect on maybe where you want to go and what you want to make of it, because you could be at any school, any university, and if you have drive, ambition, passion, leadership, all of the above, like, you will make it. And of course we want you here at USC Dornsife, but at the same time, if that doesn't work out maybe, or you take another path, that's completely okay as well. And then number 2, for anyone applying to the USC application right now, do not be nervous about, you can take things seriously on the application in the short questions, or you can take things so unserious. We just want to see who you are. I know a lot of kids overthink that, and a lot of prospective students have questions about just the short answers, but we just really want to see you, and we can tell a lot of times within your applications and application process if you're kind of holding back from us. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's shared through all these answers. It's just the the authenticity and the enthusiasm, I think, is always great. And just letting your own personal voice shine through, I think, is really great. Well, I do want to thank all of our panelists today. We are just about out of time. And thank you all for joining us and for submitting your questions. You can, of course, feel free to keep in touch with us as much as you need to, especially if we weren't able to get to your questions. We know that there are multiple offices of admission here at USC, so it might be confusing on where to go. But if it has anything to do with any information that we shared today, or anything related to the Liberal Arts College, our office, our email is going to be posted up on the screen, as well as one of my colleagues will be putting in our information about how to access us either via email through our website, an opportunity to chat with our Dornsife ambassadors like Danny, Jarrell, Kennedy, or Ava, as well as reaching us on Instagram. So all of these are great opportunities for you to feel like that you're getting the support you need throughout the college application process. But other than that, we wanted to once again just say thank you for joining us. We hope that you found this information session useful, as well as took some information that will be helpful for you in the application process. But have a great rest of your day, and as always, fight on.